Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Check Me. Of course, I'm coming over here excited about the Eagles' victory, and you know, um, I guess I'm more excited about Jalen Hurts and his development throughout the whole year. Our defense that struggled last year, Nick Sirianni, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, our front four. This was a holistic approach to how to win a Super Bowl, starting at square one, beginning in the off season. The off season starts now for most teams, for every team, and winning the off season, but finding the right guys, is important as well too. I watching the Super Bowl. I had no doubt that Philadelphia. If you watch my podcast, I had no doubt that Philadelphia was going to come in and win the game, and I was speaking with several people about, what were the main cues that we had to watch and pay attention to. Of course, it was our front four, on defense versus being able to get collapsing, holistic hug pressure. I call it hug pressure on Mahomes. And this is one of the things that, I paid close attention to and that happened. Whenever a defense can rush four with two high safeties, you have the ability to do anything. And this is Vic Fangio's recipe for success. Was it that the Eagles had better players on the front four? They did. This Super Bowl was won specifically from a approach of defensive pressure, but also making sure that you're making most of defensive opportunities. There are plenty of times where we see the defense do well, but then the offense not put points on the board or just kick field goals. So it was just as imperative as for the offense to pass the ball and score and run the ball and score as it was for the defense to stop. Throughout the whole season, teams basically said, pick your poison, right? Pick your poison. Do you want us to beat you? The Eagles basically said, do you want us to beat you with running or passing? Take your pick. Out of all the games this season, teams chose to beat the Eagles, but two teams chose the Eagles to win with running because they knew how dangerous that a passing attack was. We've seen it. We saw it happen in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. We know how dangerous that passing attack is. And, when you put 7, 8 guys in the box, or making sure you have a safety rolling with 6 guys in the box, you're not going to have favorable matchups with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. AJ Brown seeing man coverage was just, and the AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts have maybe worked that back shoulder so many times that they have it down pat. Other than that one back shoulder that they missed, but man coverage, you can't play the Eagles man coverage. They have 2 number 1 receivers who were signed, for the next couple of years. They also have a tight end who's dangerous, and of course, they have a good slot guy, Jahan Dotson, who does the small things right. This is why I was excited about teams basically saying, well, it's all about Saquon. And then when you put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands and he's making the right decisions, making the right calls, making the right plays, other than that one play against the blitz, where he just ill-advised throw, this team is virtually unstoppable. Was just is basically unstoppable. That's what we saw in the Super Bowl. We saw Spag basically say, you know what, we think that we can confuse Jalen Hurts, and we feel that if we get pressure on him and we confuse him up front, then we can actually, neutralize the passing game by stuffing Saquon Barkley. Teams could have chose to do this all year, right? And we see what happens when Washington, the Commanders, the Chiefs try to stop Saquon. When you try to stop Saquon, what happens? We go over your head. The Eagles are a team with Jalen Hurts at the helm, being able to command the offense and score points effectively and efficiently. So the defense was doing their part. Vic Fangio, if I say there's 3 MVPs of this game, I would first say Vic Fangio for just getting the defense squared away, a young defense squared away. They talked about Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman went in the offseason and picked up the right guys with the right personalities. He allowed Brandon Graham in there for senior leadership and accountability, but you mixed a bunch of senior guys like Slay and Quinyon Mitchell and that young secondary. You got Greedy, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Greedy, who's also a vet but disciplined. He's vocal. Then you have Zach Baum in a middle linebacker that can run sideline to sideline. That's a leader as well too, willing to fit in. And then you have a front four who's experienced, been to Super Bowl before as well too. But then you also two Super Bowls. But then you also have a veteran like Brandon Graham that's holding that line accountable. I'm sure they had guys come in like Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey as well. That defense, I don't think it was bad last year. I think they had the right pieces. I just think that the offense wasn't scoring last year. And when you throw another offensive coordinator in Jalen Hurts' bucket, who isn't experienced as Kellen Moore, you get that. You get the season that the Eagles had last year. If you watched the Eagles last year, you know it was a collapse. You know that wasn't supposed to happen. But then if you watch them this year, you're like, okay, like this is supposed to happen. So when you look at the perspective of what we did on defense and Vic Fangio, a veteran defensive coordinator who had the guys and just needed them to be disciplined, it was a matchup made in heaven, Vic Fangio versus Andy Reid. We talked about Patrick Mahomes being successful against Vic Fangio. But did Vic Fangio have the right guys? And that's the thing we had to have in question. Now, going on the offense, the second is the offensive line. If you watch some of these big plays, Saquon Barkley wasn't even touched 6-7 yards down the field before he broke some of these big runs. Jeff Stoutland is the best offensive line coach that you probably never heard of in football. He is a mastermind of building offense that's disciplined, turning guys that, Mekhi Becton, Jordan Mailata, bringing in Tyler Steen, Landon Dickerson, being interchangeable, Cam Jurgens, getting him squared away and ready after Jason Kelsey left. Like, Jeff Stoutland is the pioneer behind our success this year when it comes to the run game with team, and not only that, pass pro. Jalen Hurts in conjunction with Jeff Stoutland was a match made in heaven. A guy that would listen to Jeff Stoutland, who's a vet, right? Who's been in this game, who's been to two Super Bowls, who knows how to win, is a guy that can get his guys right to open up holes and also have them ready in pass protection as you rotate guys. Now, of course, the third MVP, none other than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts pioneered this team throughout the whole season, and he orchestrated a great Super Bowl. When you talk about a guy who's been to the Super Bowl twice, playoffs the past 3 years, a Super Bowl win, hit 24 and 10 or 46 and 20 record. This guy has done nothing but win. Two things that the untrained eye does not see. One is winning is a stat. The guys that built Dak Prescott doesn't have this clutch building. That's how we look at him. Dak Prescott can't win. Jalen Hurts can win. And he's got to the big stage twice. All right. The second thing is this. His ability to control the offense before the play even starts. Before play even starts is something that the untrained eye or people who don't watch football just don't know. Right? They don't understand the dynamic, and this is what a quarterback is. Teams all season basically said, okay, we're going to stop Smitty. We're going to stop AJ. I want you, Jalen Hurts, to beat us with your run game. So what did we do all season? Team said this. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts are better than Saquon Barkley. That's basically what team said all season. So we're going to play cloud coverage, palms, cover four. We're going to have our safeties deep. They're not putting their heels in the ground, ready to play some type of coverage where it's focused on the run. Teams did not do that. Teams focused on the pass. And what happened was, we saw in the Super Bowl, teams said, hey, look, you know what? Let's focus on the run. And what happened? Bombs away, baby. Bombs away. But this is what Jalen Hurts does. And Jalen Hurts can go to any other team, any offense, and be prolific and be great and have the numbers that you guys want. But the mindset, the humbleness of a leader to say, you know what, these stats aren't important as a Super Bowl at the end of the year, is what a lot of people who don't watch the game and don't know can't measure. Great stats. Joe Burrow, right? Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, Jane Daniels had decent stats, but where are they? Right? In the Super Bowl, we saw Jalen Hurts throw well against the blitz for the most part. We saw him find Smitty and bats in good spots. We saw him be efficient on second and third down. He really put the team in a bad situation. He was making the right calls, and this is what you want to see. Why didn't they get to Jalen Hurts like they did a couple of years ago? One thing, he was staying in the pocket. Why was he staying in the pocket? Because he understood where the pressure was coming from. Right? Spag does a really good job of disguising his blitzes, disguising his zones. Very good job of that to confuse the quarterback. But if your protection's right and you know where the blitz is coming from, you're squared away. Big shout out to Saquon Barkley and blitz pickup. Right, Saquon Barkley, for the most part, other than that one time he went to the edge and then block interior, Jalen Hurts staying in the pocket is going to be vital. And we saw him get smart throughout the game, just take off and run. This is the mix that we wanted to see. Now, Nick Sirianni, like you talk about managing, and Jeffrey Lurie hit this as well too. Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni hit this as well too. Managing a locker room, look how many egos you have. You have AJ Brown, who's a star, Devontae Smith, who's a star, Saquon Barkley, who's a star, Dallas Goedert, who's a star, Jalen Hurts, who's a star. Right, that's just on offense, and then you got an all-star offensive line that just wants to run, that loves running the ball. Mailata, Lane Johnson, Leonard Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Mekhi Becton. You got guys that on the offense line that want to run the ball. And then you piece all that together. Managing that locker room with egos had to take everyone buying in and being humble. That means for 4 to 5 weeks, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith only getting about 6 or 7 targets. But you're winning. Or that means Saquon in the Super Bowl getting stopped and have to be better at pass pro. So this is why we look at Nick Sirianni, as well as trusting Vic Fangio with the defense. Bringing in Vic, bringing in Kellen Moore, right? A play caller that was banished in Dallas. Right? To come in, make the play calls, trust him throughout the season. Right? Even when he made a monumental mistake, trust him throughout that mistake. Nick Sirianni did an amazing job just allowing his team to operate, his coaches to operate, as well as giving his 2 cents here and there, but also managing player personalities. So Jalen Hurts, of course, being humble, but then last thing, you have Howie Roseman. This Eagles team in the past seven years has won 2 Super Bowls, been to 3, has had one of the winningest records in football for the past 7 years. Went to the Super Bowl with 2 quarterbacks, two different coaches, a whole new defense, and I think there's only one player that was in the Super Bowl when they first won it 7 years ago. Then this year, I think Brandon Graham, like Lane Johnson. I don't know. Was Mailata there? I'm not sure. But Howie Roseman did a phenomenal job of bringing these guys in with the right personalities, right? Guys who are willing to learn, guys who are hungry, right? To buy in all at once. Big shout out to Howie Roseman. Jeffrey Lurie, big shout out to him, making sure that players are accommodated with the facilities. This was a win for the Philadelphia Eagles that holistically showed why we're a team to be reckoned with. If you look on offense, Smitty signed. A.J. Brown signed. Jalen Hurts signed. Saquon Barkley signed. Lane Johnson signed. Dickerson signed. You have pretty much the whole offense. Mekhi Becton, of course, you got to work with him. I think Landon Dickerson actually is up for a contract. Mailata got paid. That offense is pretty much coming back next year. But on defense, you got young Jalen Carter. You got Sweat. You got Jordan Davis, right? I think Jordan Davis is up for a contract as well too. But Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Darius Slay, who might move to a nickel depending on if he retires or not and how he feels, right? You got Quinyon Mitchell. You got Greedy Johnson, who came back, and all you got to do is sign Zach Baum. People want to come play in Philadelphia. That's the place to be. You look at next year, this NFC East is about to be stacked. Remember, Washington hasn't beat Dallas Cowboys with Dak. They can't beat Dallas Cowboys with Dak. Dak spanks the Washington Commanders all over again. Remember, Jaden Daniels hasn't beat the Dallas Cowboys this year. Mariota beat them. They lost the first time. Mariota was starting quarterback that finished that game out in the second, third, and fourth quarter. This Cowboys team split with Washington with no Dak. So we have to really think like the NFC East, like it's a force to be reckoned with. But the Eagles, basically, other than the loss to the Giants at the beginning of the season, they lost to Tampa, right? Tampa always plays Philadelphia tough. It's a great matchup. The Giants missed that Saquon drop. Saquon had a phenomenal game. I thought it was where Jalen Hurts was developing and learning. But then the last time the Eagles lost one time they lost after 16, 17 games was when Jalen Hurts was out. And they had and if it wasn't for Smay dropping it, they would have won. So this Eagles team is ready again for another run in the playoffs next year. But this is where what we look at when we talk about the greatness of Jalen Hurts, the greatness of Nick Sirianni, the greatness of Jeff Stoutland, the greatness of Vic Fangio, which I hope comes back next year. He should. Right? This is what we see with a team that has been built with brotherly love. So I'm excited. I'm happy we won a Super Bowl. If you follow me on Instagram, social media, I was going crazy. I was going crazy. I expected the blowout. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes played necessarily a bad game. I thought that he faced a team that was ready for them. This is probably the best assembled team that we've seen in years. Like everything across the board, we can say, hey, we have a top guy in the league in. Secondary, linebackers, defensive front, offensive line, running backs, receivers, tight ends. All right, so we have everybody pretty much coming back. This team was ready. I don't know why the Chiefs didn't run the ball as much as they. I was surprised. Pacheco was a dominant force the last time he played in the Super Bowl. But we have big hogmas like Milton Williams and Jordan Davis. I mean, look at Sweat. Like Josh Sweat, a long DN, getting in there. Nolan Smith, like pressuring, like rotating guys who want to win. Like rotating guys who want to win is a huge thing that we see. Like on our front four, you got guys who are disciplined, who all understand. Like Jalen Carter sacrificed so much this past game. He was getting doubled most of the game, but him getting doubled allows other guys to get to the quarterback. Hug pressure, meaning that you're rushing and everybody is aligned at the same level. Meaning you're pushing the pocket back, no holes to escape. You can't get outside. You're messing up route concepts, right? The route rules, route spacing's all messed up. This is what the front four did. So big shout out to Philadelphia. Just excited that we went and we took it and we won. I want to see more of this the following years. Good to see Saquon get one after what happened with New York. Big shout out to Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP. Smitty AJ got one. Dallas Goedert got one. Lane Johnson got another. So, it is what it is. Y'all look. Oh, Travis Kelce, Patrick the Chiefs. Chiefs are going to reload. They'll be all right. But we'll see what happens in the AFC. We talked about all the AFC last year. AFC this, AFC that. But NFC takes the crown this year.